Hello and welcome to TVP World. I'm your host, Diana Skara. We begin this morning with the latest on the trade war. U.S. President Donald Trump is open to making a deal with the European Union. However, until that does happen, the new tariffs will stay in place. Trump mentioned several conditions for their removal, including the EU moving to purchase more American energy resources. The EU would have to commit to buying $350 billion worth of U.S. energy to get Donald Trump to cancel the sweeping tariffs. Trump's wave of levies prompted Brussels to offer the United States zero-for-zero tariffs on cars and industrial goods, but Trump rejected the proposal late on Monday.
And yet they send millions of cars in a year, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, BMWs. They're sending millions and millions of cars into the U.S., but we don't have a car that's been sold to the European Union or other places, but let's go for the European Union. And it's not going to be that way. It's got to be fair and reciprocal. It's got to be fair. It's not fair. We have a deficit with the European Union of $350 billion. And it's going to disappear fast. And one of the reasons and one of the ways that that can disappear easily and quickly is they're going to have to buy our energy from us because they need it. They're going to have to buy it from us. They can buy it. We can knock off $350 billion in 1 week.
Last week, Trump slapped 20% tariffs on the European Union and a minimum 10% levy on other trade partners. In response to the move, the EU is expected to introduce a 25% duty on a wide range of U.S. exports, including iron, steel, aluminum, and vehicles. Now, if the countermeasures pass parliamentary votes in EU capitals, most of the tariffs are expected to go into effect by May 16.
We are open for negotiations, and that in parallel we are preparing a potential list for retaliation and other measures for retaliation if this is necessary. We prefer to have a negotiated solution. The relevant partners, Maroš Šefčovič, our trade commissioner, and Secretary of Commerce Latnik, for example, are in very close contacts on that topic. And it is clear that negotiations have to go deep into technical details. So this has to be solved first, and then comes the next step. But all the different instruments are on the table, and we have to see how the negotiations go to decide which instrument we are using finally.
The EU is getting ready to respond to the Trump administration's tariffs, like we just heard. Now, Polish press agency is reporting that the European Commission will propose retaliatory tariffs up to 25% on American goods. Now, the 67-page draft Commission decision obtained by PAP contains tables with lists of goods to be subjected to EU duties. The vast majority of the items are expected to undergo 25% customs tariffs rather than the previous 10%. EU Trade Commissioner Maroš Šefčovič told reporters on Monday that the range of U.S. tariffs imposed last week by the Trump administration is nearing 380 billion euros worth of EU exports to the United States. The commissioner added that the European Union would start collecting the first tranche of duties on U.S. imports from April 15 and a second wave from May 15. As the world witnessed wild market swings triggered by new U.S. tariffs on Monday, former Polish Prime Minister Jan Krzysztof Bielecki told TVP World in an exclusive interview that he remains optimistic. Despite mounting fears of a full-blown trade war, Bielecki believes that Europe still has a strategic window of opportunity.
Well, I think in the medium term, I'm an optimist, and I think that the Europeans could come out from the situation even with some rebalance or a little bit restructure economy, so it should be good. Okay, if some let's call it quite politely unnecessary welfare policy could be a little bit adjusted, it's only good for the competitiveness of the economy.
For traders and businesses all over the globe, Monday was the stuff of nightmares. Panic was the main thing on the menu in Poland as the Warsaw Stock Exchange decided to suspend trading for an hour in response to Wall Street opening in the red and trading security concerns. Our chief political correspondent, Aaron Damon, took a closer look at some of the largest stock exchanges as well as the effect the tariffs had on trading, and has this next report.
From Asia to Europe, a Monday morning shock to the stocks. Donald Trump's tariffs terrifying the global economy.
When the market opens at minus 10%, panic is the order of the day, because there are obviously more sellers than buyers, which ultimately creates a lot of price pressure.
That was in Germany as European shares plunged to a 16-month low and investors grapple with the possibility of a recession.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
And despite his trade policy wiping trillions off markets around the world, Trump is sticking to his America First guns.
What's going to happen with the market, I can't tell you, but I can tell you our country has gotten a lot stronger. And eventually, it'll be a country like no other. I don't want anything to go down, but sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something.
Warsaw's stock exchange was briefly caught up in the financial fire, even suspending operations for an hour due to trading safety, before managing to avoid the same steep fall as some of its continental counterparts. This is how Poland's blue-chip companies have fared since Trump's re-election in November last year. Compare that to New York's S&P 500 and London's FTSE 100, and all show markets falling off a cliff after his tariff crackdown.
We are observing some emotional reaction, and as soon as the emotions are in play, they're always volatile and they lead to the huge drops. As soon as the rational part of the understanding analysis comes into play, the decisions are done by the smaller steps.
A source within one of Poland's major banks told TVP World it is clear extreme volatility has hit the regional markets, but that the country's economic growth is still expected to be strong. They maintain the impact of the tariffs is unlikely to be as heavy on Poland as its neighbours. At the same time, Prime Minister Donald Tusk is calling for calm.
The reaction to the tariff war was predictable. We need to survive the stock market shake-up from Japan through Europe to America without making hasty decisions. Stay calm, we will persevere.
As we go to air tonight, Wall Street continues to fluctuate, but the day's final bell in Europe has seen the Warsaw Stock Exchange close down 1.5%, with the FTSE 100 down 4.4% and Germany's DAX down 4.3%. A roller coaster ride as Donald Trump defiantly holds up a red card to his critics. Aaron Damon, TVP World.
Polish President Andrzej Duda is in Estonia for day 2 of his 3-day state visit. The aim of his trip is to strengthen relations between Warsaw and Tallinn, one of Poland's key partners in the Baltic Sea region. Now, the official part of the second day of his visit will begin with a meeting between the Polish president and his wife and the Estonian First Lady. Later in the day, Duda is set to discuss bilateral relations with the Estonian Prime Minister and the Speaker of the Estonian Parliament. Parliamentary cooperation, the security situation in the region, and joint efforts within NATO and the EU will be high on the agenda. On Wednesday, Duda will then travel to the cyber range CR-14 training ground created to train and test cyber defense mechanisms. The facility is now being used by NATO members to better prepare for any incoming cyber attacks. The United States will move troops and equipment away from a key transit hub for Ukrainian aid in southeastern Poland, redeploying them to other parts of the country. Officials said the work of providing military support for Kyiv via the airport at Jasionka near Rzeszów will continue under the coordination of Poland and other NATO countries. In its announcement on Monday, the U.S. said the decision, coordinated with Warsaw and NATO, forms part of a broader strategy to optimize American military operations. The U.S. said the streamlined military footprint would improve the level of support to allies and partners while also improving operational efficiency. It emerged late last year that NATO had taken greater control over Ukraine aid coordination, including in Jasionka which is the main hub for deliveries to war-torn Ukraine. The Ukrainian Air Force reports that Russia launched 46 drones and an Iskander-M ballistic missile during an overnight attack. 9 drones were downed, while another 31 failed to reach their targets, likely due to electronic countermeasures, Kyiv reported. Now, the Ukrainians did not say what happened to the remaining 6 drones or the missile. Ukraine is still reeling after a recent Russian attack that killed 9 children when a missile tore through apartment buildings and hit a playground in Kryvyi Rih. In his nightly address, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that Kyiv's troops are still present in the Belgorod region, a territory of the Russian Federation.
Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky also reported today on the front line our presence in the Kursk region and in the Belgorod region. We continue active operations in the border areas on enemy territory, and this is absolutely fair. The war must return to where it came from. Our primary objective remains protecting our land and shielding our communities in Sumy and Kharkiv regions from Russian occupiers. The Commander-in-Chief reported on the activity of our units along the borderline in the so-called gray zone and directly on enemy territory. Importantly, thanks to the bravery and resilience of our warriors in the Kursk region, thanks to the entire Kursk operation, we've been able to reduce pressure on other parts of the front, particularly in the Donetsk region.
On Monday, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha called for an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council to be convened Tuesday. His appeal came in response to the recent Russian ballistic missile strike on Kryvyi Rih, which killed 9 Ukrainian children.
Ukraine has initiated an urgent meeting of the UN Security Council and a special meeting of the OSCE Permanent Council to bring Russian crimes to the forefront. Both meetings will be convened tomorrow and will help to advance peace efforts and accountability. A robust international response to Russian atrocities is critical. Such terror should never be normalized. We call for both strong condemnation and firm action.
It will calm down a lot of issues which were unnecessarily emotional, said the chairman of the Polish-Ukrainian Parliamentary Group and former Polish ambassador to Canada, Marcin Bosacki, referring to the official start of the exhumation process in the village of Puzhniki in western Ukraine. The exhumations, looking to unearth the remains of the Polish victims of the Volhynia massacres, are still a highly sensitive issue for both Poland and Ukraine.
Poles did not or have not demanded much. They just demanded, both society and the families of the victims and the state as such. The Christian gesture to have possibility to bury their relatives or compatriots. And finally, the starting. I think it will calm down a lot of issues which were unnecessarily emotional, and let's say it frankly, also used by the common enemy, which is Russia. So I think from this decision, which I hope will be conducted smoothly and swiftly, only good things will develop for strengthened Polish-Ukrainian cooperation.
And that completes this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching, and do stay tuned with us for more news, features, and commentary.